Thank you, Ashley, and the entire team for everything you guys do to get us ready each month. So we appreciate it. Why don't we go through and do a quick round of intros, your name and your organization, and then we'll hop into the agenda. I'm Chelsea, president at the Minneapolis Regional Labor Federation, and I chair this committee. The phone number ending in 10.
That's me, Kate from Eureka.
Hi, Kate. Ashley.
Sorry. Ashley Boone with the City of Minneapolis Civil Rights Department.
May.
Hi there, this is May Brooks with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board.
Elise.
Hi, everyone. It's Elise Diedrich with Target.
And Nicolette, I'll come back to you last. Madeline.
Madeline Lohman with the Advocates for Human Rights.
Veronica.
Veronica Mendez Moore with SITUL.
Wade.
Wade Luneberg with Unite Here.
And Brian.
Brian Walsh, City of Minneapolis.
Why don't I hand it over to you, Brian, to introduce our guest here?
Yeah.
And Brian Elliott, the other
Oh,
Brian.
you did jump on. Sorry. Okay, sorry, Brian. Did
Had
I miss
the wrong link.
Did I miss anyone else? Did anyone hop in while we were doing intros? Sorry about that. Okay, Brian Walsh.
Well, before we have Nicolette say her name and organization, maybe we'll ask her to say a few more words than that, because I'll start the meeting off with just a piece of really good news that you'll all recall. The Labor Standards Enforcement Division received one additional FTE following passage of the wage theft ordinance, which at this point feels like a lifetime ago. And then we literally were like this close to filling it. And then the pandemic and related hiring freeze hit. I'm actually sort of glad in a way that happened, because we finally have that position unfrozen and filled. So it's really a pleasure to introduce to everybody Nicolette Gullickson. You can see she has her camera on, but she's been here for almost a month, a few weeks now. I feel like
About a month and a half.
Oh, there we go, a month and a half. Thank you. But no, Nicolette, you're doing a great job, and everybody, I'm really excited. I hope that you all, over the months and perhaps years, get a chance to know her better. But super detailed, super thorough, and just really motivated, and a great addition to the team. So maybe Nicolette, if you could just say a little bit about yourself and your background, maybe.
Sure. Hi. It's really great to virtually meet everyone. Like Brian said, I've been an investigator in LSAT for about a month and a half now, and I had just finished graduate school the second time around. I have a master's in public policy and a master in sexuality studies, but my research has been around non-discrimination law, and I worked for the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission for about 3 years doing investigative work for them. So this job with LSAT is a really good fit, and I have really been enjoying the work so far.
Well, welcome. This group keeps everyone in the labor division busy, so we really appreciate you being here, and you're welcome anytime to brief the group or ask us questions, or I know we'll do one-on-ones with investigators too as needed. So, Brian and I met with the industry leader and investigator just last week, so we really appreciate it.
Chelsea, do you want me to jump to the next couple of quick announcements I have from the department side? And I'll try to do this quickly. This is kind of a super big picture one. I couldn't help myself. I'm going to share my screen really quickly if you guys don't mind. And I might be taking this out of order, but I'm going to do this one first. I just wanted to, since we are the Workplace Advisory Committee, let me see if I can. This was something I just pulled out of the Washington Post. It's nothing that you don't already know. It's just the labor market right now, and ultimately the labor market itself is what regulates a lot of employer behavior for good, bad, or otherwise. So I just thought this was something, this just kind of puts it in numbers and really quantifies it. You can see the top couple of lines and the mismatch between job openings and actually people searching for those job openings. I guess I don't know that we need to discuss it at all. I just wanted to kind of name it for everybody on the committee. And again, it's all something that affects all of our work, everybody on this committee, in one way, shape, or form. I'm sure that Elise, from the Target perspective, could kind of give us an example or two of how this is affecting what Target does. But again, just kind of wanted to throw this out there, and we don't have to have a whole discussion about it. We could, if we want, but certainly it again affects everything that that we do, really, either on the worker side or on the employer side. So I just kind of want to flag that for folks. And then the other thing, going from super high level to very kind of minute day-to-day stuff, we had a couple of settlements recently that I wanted to share with the group. One of them from last month was, and then let me pull up the details really quickly, was with a home care agency called Minnesota Professional Health Services Incorporated, and we recovered over $46,000 owed to 260 home health aides, excuse me, under the sick and safe time and minimum wage ordinances. So that was a really good recovery and good win for the department. A more recent one at a Jimmy John's franchise in Northeast, we recovered over 17,000 owed to 24 workers under the sick and safe time ordinance. Just kind of wanted to give that as an example of where we're finding problems and recent settlements that we've entered into, but also just kind of remind everybody, to the extent that any committee members have capacity or willingness or interest in helping us lift up these settlements, the more that both workers and employers hear about them, it's a really helpful reminder in everyone's rights and responsibilities and helps motivate good behavior on all sides, I think. So we did press releases actually we're about to do a press release in the second of those two settlements, but the first of the two was picked up by a couple of the local media outlets, and I think that that's really helpful in just very slowly but incrementally raising rates of compliance across all workplaces, but especially in the industries affected by those particular settlements. So anyway, want to flag that.
Can you send those press releases and the news clippings out to this committee?
Excellent idea. We'll absolutely do that.
And then that first group, the home healthcare workers, was that in a facility or is that in people's homes?
I believe that was in people's homes. The employer happened to be located inside the city of Minneapolis, and of course, all of the workers all 260 were in homes in Minneapolis.
Great. Any questions of Brian on the settlements? You have a sense of how many cases you work on that don't even get to the settlement phase?
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say half. It's more than that. It's probably closer to 60% that are not settled. Probably fluctuates obviously year to year, month to month, but around 60%, maybe a little more, between 60-65% that are either we don't have jurisdiction of. There's a variety of reasons why it doesn't get that far, but it might be that we don't have jurisdiction over it. That allegations are simply not meritorious, or that we're unable to prove it. Those are probably the biggest categories of reasons that we would actually not reach a settlement.
All right, thank you. I'll open up for any other questions of Brian on department updates. Right, general member updates. So this is for any member of the committee to share anything that is happening in your industry or in your sphere of influence, current events, trends, announcements.
Yeah, I'll just say, we're still, this is Brian Elliott with SEIU. We're still working at the legislature on the frontline worker pay issue. The sticking point at the moment is that the Republicans on the working group want to limit who can get pandemic pay, for lack of a better word, to hospital and nursing home workers. And we have made the case very strongly that there were literally hundreds of thousands of workers beyond that were also putting their health on the line by going to work and working in person around other people because they were not able to telework due to the nature of their job. So that's the current sticking point. We're trying, negotiations are still happening, but the other challenge is that in order to get money out, a special session is going to need to happen. And Jeremy Miller, the new Senate Majority Leader, indicated that he couldn't promise that if they convene in a special session to deal with this, that they wouldn't try to fire the Department of Health Commissioner Malcolm. And of course, the governor and the House are not going to agree to a special session that might result in firing the health commissioner. So that's kind of where that is.
Thank you, Brian, for keeping us appraised of that work. Does anyone else have any updates they wanted to share?
I was just going to add to with Brian, and also, there might be an ask for an additional funds. To your point, there's just not enough funds to cover all the workers that I think ideally would like to be given those checks. So it's this double challenge of the special session or waiting it out to go into next session and making it a session issue. So unfortunately, I feel like this task force is going to have to come up with a solution pretty quick, or we'll drag it into a whole nother session here.
All right, other updates. Well, we'll go back to the agenda here then and the appointments. We talked about this last month, and I think you read off the list of folks who needed to reapply. What's the deadline for that?
October 1st.
Ooh, thanks, Ashley. Was that you, Ashley?
Yeah.
I was just searching for that quick. I wanted to say October 1st. Thanks for confirming that. And Ashley was kind enough to send out an email earlier today, but I'll just list off the folks because of course we appreciate your service on this committee and hope that you reapply. I believe, and Ashley, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the terms ending this year, so you again would need to reapply by October 1st. And look for the email from Ashley. Those folks are May Brooks, Kate Davenport, Brian Elliott, Veronica Mendez Moore, Madeline Lohman, Joanne Hager, Dana Frank, and Anna Schmitz. Which brings me actually to the second kind of piece of this is filling empty seats. And I might need some help, but I believe we have Ben Schweigert's former seat. And then we have Joanne Hager, who hasn't been to one of our meetings in quite some time. So I consider that to be an open seat. And that was a labor seat, if I'm not mistaken. And then the same is true of Dana Frank. We haven't seen her, and she is in a business seat. So there an opportunity really for committee members and Ashley and I to do some recruiting and some thinking about who would be a good fit with this group. So if anyone has any thoughts or any ideas, you can certainly reach out to one another and discuss, but let Ashley and I know if there's anything we can do to assist anyone through an application process.
Can you drop the link to the application?
Yep.
Thanks, Ashley. And I think Chelsea is the next item was going to be Eric from the Federal Reserve Bank. I'll just mention again for everyone and a few who joined after the meeting started. Eric Garcia Luna was connected to me by Chelsea, and you're all most if not all of you are familiar with him, and you're probably some of you in touch with him about this survey that he's been doing of workers, and I did get a chance to meet with him and talk with him. So just real briefly explain, I thought the idea and the concept and sort of the I guess the gap that he's trying to fill and that the Minneapolis Federal Reserve Bank is addressing is the Federal Reserve Bank's connection with workers directly, which is not as easy, I think, to do as the Federal Reserve Bank connecting with employers and particularly larger employers, but trying to get more and better data and connecting directly with workers. It seems to be a very intentional project of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve Bank, and Eric Garcia Luna, part of that is doing a survey of workers, and I think a few of you have been involved in that. He would love to come and will and still plans on coming to talk to this committee about that work. I think I saw actually there was a story in the Star Tribune not long ago about sort of the leadership of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve Bank in that regard. But hopefully we'll hear more, and I plan on meeting with Eric again before our next WAC meeting to talk more about how he can get actually more involved with this committee and come and sort of help him think through more in different ways to get more directly connected and bring sort of worker voices to the table, if you will, at the Federal Reserve Bank, which is, of course, an amazingly powerful and important institution. So I'll leave it there. He had to be a late scratch from this meeting. He couldn't make it. There was something about Federal Reserve policy where he couldn't talk about his work before it was done or something like that, but he plans on being here next month.
Thank you. So then the next update is the downtown workers. Veronica, want to take that? You there, Veronica?
Can you hear me?
Yep, now we can.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Having trouble. I have it on my phone. Yeah, not much of a big report. You know, we last month made some recommendations to both some city councilors and the mayor about issues related to, the extended emergency sick time, about funding for LSED and community contracts, as well as training and ways to make sure that workers have more access to training, like downtown workers have more access to training. So I think there's still a few things in this that kind of need to get sorted out as far as like what is legally possible with trainings, like what just kind of looking at the existing ordinance language to figure out where we can make some moves to ensure that kind of access to training. So that's, it's all been lifted up to the mayor and some city council folks, and that's kind of where we are right now. Some workers will be getting together over the next couple of weeks to continue to discuss how things just keep changing so quickly, right? Like, there's all the conversations about money coming into the city, like how do we influence that conversation? Like, there's just a lot moving right now, but that's kind of where we are. Not a big update. Still sort of figuring some things out. I don't know if there's anything else anyone wants to add, Brian or Chelsea or anyone, or if there's any questions.
I guess my only question is for Brian Elliott, and maybe how the ongoing conversation at the legislature might, or when, or how it could possibly shift to the city, or what that might look like, or if you have any thoughts at this time.
Yeah, so I mean, the challenge is that I think the focus is now more, quite frankly, on the sort of co-enforcement and co-training kind of proposals, in part because the tax credit for some businesses to provide paid emergency leave is expiring at the end of this month. Now, what the feds decide to do, given the we're in the fourth wave with the surge in the Delta variant, if they extend that, I think it makes sense for the city to have a conversation, the city council to have a conversation about that. But barring that, I don't know that it does. And I think the things that we're focused on are, again, trying to get, as Veronica was saying, trying to get more resources to Labor Standards Division for additional, staff, for additional investigators. Though I am very glad about your new hire. And more importantly, getting money that can support organizations in doing outreach, both employer organizations and worker organizations doing outreach about the labor standards, but also this piece about that the Downtown Workers Council has identified around figuring out how, you've got good employers who are, talking to their employees about the city's labor standards, or following all those standards, are not an issue, including our employers here on this call today. You have employers who are not following the labor standards that are having decisions against them by the Labor Standards Department, Brian, that you mentioned also earlier today. But there's a whole universe of employers whose workers may or may not know about their rights under the city's labor standards, and as a result may not know if their employer is following those standards or not. And we got to figure out how we can get workers the training by trusted organizations to understand what their rights are under the labor standards of the city.
Veronica, do you still have your hand up, or is that from before?
That's from before.
And it looks like Chris has joined us from Target. Welcome.
Thanks. Sorry, running a little late today.
You're okay. Anything else on the downtown workers? So the next thing is the quick update. Wade, are you still on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you want to say a little bit about Bloomington?
Sure. And I'm hoping, I hope I don't mix this up. I feel like we touched on this at least one MWAC meeting, and then Chelsea hosted a briefing for folks that were interested in the Sick and Safe Time initiative in Bloomington. There's a panel of volunteers out there sitting on a panel. The city's interested in working on this initiative. Actually, they're more than interested. City administration has been instructed by the city council to put forward a sick and safe time ordinance. And the panel has a person from Health Partners, so a large business, the chambers there. There's a general manager from a hotel out in Bloomington, a Union Hotel, which is the largest industry in the city. Main Street Alliance is there. There's a youth employer and shelter operator. Take Action is at the table. There's a Bloomington resident, Nat Anderson Lippert, who's also works for MFT here in Minneapolis. A small business owner and myself. And so we're working on a schedule. We've had 3 meetings so far, and another 3 that will be scheduled. Unfortunately, one was canceled for next week, but I think that that's about city staff trying to kind of line up their ducks and get their program out. We are not working off of any draft, but we do have access to the Minneapolis ordinance, the St. Paul ordinance, and the Duluth ordinance that the staff is kind of referring to in discussions. It's fair to say that we're, I think, trying to focus more on the Minneapolis ordinance. There's a lot of interest on the staff. The staff is, I think, really interested in this and really wanting to make it successful. I think the difficulty, if there is difficulty in this, is on the enforcement piece, because Bloomington simply doesn't have the experience or the infrastructure to, at least at this point, to really enforce these kind of labor standards ordinances in a meaningful way. And so Brian Walsh did a star turn at the last meeting and delivered the bad news that it's a lot of work and it takes resources as well. And so I think that that's something that the staff is probably taking back and sharpening their pencils and trying to figure out how they can actually build out that infrastructure. And so I think that kind of like leads to other things and kind of a conversation that they didn't know they'd be having around those kind of issues. And if we're going to do this work, then, are we going to expand the work after sick and safe time? And I think, and I hope that the answer is yes. And so really kind of building out a labor standards table, maybe like this, and just to keep the work going. And I'm happy to talk to anybody if you want to pop me an email or if you have questions or a call. And I know, like I said, Chelsea put together a great meeting a few weeks ago, and I know she put together some really good notes from that meeting as well. So if you don't have those, contact Chelsea for that, and we'll keep you posted as we go.
Thank you, Wade. Wade, were you hands-on on the St. Paul one too?
No.
It's like that's a lot of work doing all of them.
Yeah.
Good. So you have I have one other topic that I just wanted to, I don't know that we need to go into it too much today, but I would like to, I think this committee should be discussing how employers and employees are relating to the vaccine and testing requirements that we're seeing at these different levels, and just sort of like, how is that rolling out? How is that impacting workers? How is that impacting employers? And I would just open the floor if anybody wanted to reflect on what they're seeing, or how their workforce is responding, and then maybe we could have that be on the agenda next month as well.
I'll hop in. You know, with the Biden plan announcement last week, we're just like most businesses digesting it. What exactly will it look like? Trying to figure out the timelines. And as you said, sort of, is it truly a vaccine mandate with testing, or could a business choose to just vaccine, which is what we're anticipating right now? You could make a choice, but you know, the big concern here also is around testing and supplies, and how would that be conducted? How do you capture results? Things like that. So we're working through a lot of those broader, the logistics piece of it, and then also just how would that impact staffing or our employees? What are they going to think? You know, what are their choices going to be? So a lot of discussion around that, particularly. I know, at least as one of the larger employers, we're having a lot of discussions around it.
Does anybody want to share anything else?
Well, this is Wade. So in our industry, I think that two things. I think it's too soon to tell from the announcement last week. I think that a lot of companies are really sussing it out. But we're a customer-facing industry in general, so we anticipate that most operators are going to require vaccinations. But if you really kind of think about like the Hiltons and the Marriotts and the Hyatts, those kind of like giant corporations, while they're large corporations and you see their signs on a lot of buildings, oftentimes they're flying a Hilton flag, but it's owned by another company and managed by Hilton. And so it doesn't take long for some of those kind of relationships to get really complicated, and who can require and who's in charge of those properties. But it's my understanding that the convention center will be required to be vaccinated, so as a city property. And so those relationships are really different and diverse throughout the industry from top to bottom.
Yeah, I've heard the city of Minneapolis is starting in the convention center, and then they'll work their way out. And my understanding is that it's a vaccine or test is what's currently being proposed. One thing that we're seeing in the collective bargaining universe, where folks are represented, that there's a lot of conversations around implementation and effects bargaining is what they call it sometimes, or impact bargaining, where there's discussions about, well, who's bearing the cost of the test? Does it take away from work time? Will you get paid to take the test? All of those kind of things. So this is just emerging. We've started to see this show up in workplaces where people are having to do effects bargaining. Again, this is the unionized workforce, not the non-unionized. Okay, well, I'm no expert, but I think that between now and the next meeting, there'll be a lot. And I think, does the next meeting fall on a holiday? Is that why it's on the agenda? I feel like this happens every October, November, December.
Ashley,
So yeah, go ahead.
Ashley, I saw you go unmute and then you muted again. I think it does fall on a holiday. In previous years, what we've done is just push it ahead one Monday. And I think Ashley and
Did we usually push it back to the 3rd?
Sorry. Yes, I'm thinking pushing it back, and I said ahead. Yes, push it further out into the future by 1 week. And I think Ashley and I, that's what we were thinking we would like to do this coming October. So, but however, we obviously want to defer to the wisdom of the group. So why don't I
That
Oh,
October 11th, which holiday is that?
that's a good question. Ashley, what holiday is it?
Indigenous Peoples Day.
Indigenous people, yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
And then is the second Monday in November the 8th also a holiday?
Not that I'm aware of. I think the Veterans Day is the 11th.
Yeah,
Later
it
that
is.
week.
And that's on a Thursday this year.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So we're good.
I don't see a holiday on the 8th, no.
Okay. I think last year it might have fallen on that Monday, so. Okay. Yeah, are folks okay just moving it back 1 week in October?
Sure.
Well, I think we'll just move it back 1 week. Ashley, if you can update everyone's calendar invites, we'd appreciate it.
Great. That was easy. Thank you, everyone.
Any updates or anything else for the good of the order? All right, seeing none, we can adjourn, and I've already sent the application form off to a whole handful of people while we were talking today. So hopefully those applications start rolling in. And for current folks, don't forget to send in your reapplication.
Chelsea, thank you so much. And Ashley and I will follow up on everything that we promised to during the meeting.
Great, thank you. We appreciate it. Nice to see you all.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks
Yeah.
all.